Hi, I'm Matt Hernandez, and this is Book Chat with You. In the previous episode, I said why I will kind of do comic books and stuff like that a little bit, so I don't want to really rehash all that, which is why I kind of made that kind of newsy episode. So today we're looking here at Spider-Man Back in Black. There were 5 issues of Back in Black for Amazing Spider-Man. Then I believe, there was just 2 for the Sensational Spider-Man, and then I believe there were 2, what is it for? Spectacular or Friendly Neighborhood? I don't have those issues. So one reason I'm looking at this also is because it leads to Brand New Day in Spider-Man. So I'm re-recording this because the last time the camera was just kind of just on the top of my head the whole time. But I don't know when I will put this to video, but whenever I do, I'm going to end up putting myself on like one of the corners of the page. And then most of the time, the camera or the screen is just going to be on the comic. So I'm going to begin. This is going to be part review, part commentary, and part reading the comic. I hope that if any of this would be beyond fair use, well, that it is okay, simply because the comic book is nearly 20 years old. So I hope so. I'm also going to do the advertisements because the advertisements are kind of a time capsule, and I do enjoy them because they're a time capsule, not because I'm trying to look to buy 20-year-old toys. So here I begin. The Marvel Universe from Diamond Select Toys. So we already have an ad, kind of busts and statues and that type of thing. You know, here in China, there's quite a few of these toy stores, and they're not even quite toys. They're like figurines and that type of thing. You know, I kind of got my son kind of a nice toy that was like a bit more than an action figure, kind of in the figurine space. Ah, man, did not last long. Did not last long. Okay, so I'm going to read here on the page. I'm just going to read the prologue. I might not always read the prologue, but it's kind of important to know what led to Back in Black, which leads to One More Day, which leads to Brand New Day. Okay, The Amazing Spider-Man. I'm going to read here. When high school student Peter Parker was bitten by a radioactive spider, he gained the proportionate strength, agility, and abilities of the arachnid. More importantly, he learned that with great power comes great responsibility. Ever since that fateful day, Peter has lived a double life as the Amazing Spider-Man, a costume superhero who has been put through more than his fair share of misery and heartache. And recently, things have only gotten worse. After registering his secret identity with the United States government and revealing it to the world in a televised news conference, Peter found himself at odds with Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, and his registration agenda. The decision to leave Stark's side made Peter an outlaw on the run, and he has been living in a sleazy motel with his wife Mary Jane and his Aunt May ever since. Hoping to set things right again, Spider-Man joined Captain America and other anti-registration heroes in a titanic battle against Iron Man and his pro-registration allies in the middle of New York City. But after the smoke had cleared, Captain America was arrested, and Spider-Man and many of the anti-reg heroes were forced underground. And as Spider-Man fought, old friends and old enemy resurfaced. The imprisoned kingpin of crime, Wilson Fisk, hired a sniper to kill Spider-Man and his loved ones. When Peter returned home that night, he sensed the spider's presence, but not quickly enough. Though he knocked his wife out of the path of the bullet's path, it hit his Aunt May instead. So watching the movie No Way Home, where it does the whole universe thing, the multiverse thing, I don't want to say too strongly what I felt about the multiverse thing, but I guess it'll lead to the next Avengers movie. But if you guys had seen that movie, it's kind of inverse what happens here, and maybe I should have a spoiler for that movie, or maybe not. I mean, it came out a few years ago, but it's kind of an inverse, and whenever you see what happens in One More Day, there'll be a few connections. I don't know. How directly do I make spoilers to movies that came out just a few years ago? I don't know. So, looking here, we see Peter Parker holding his aunt. Aunt May, no. And his wife next to him. Oh God, oh God, oh God. So, here, so we had that movie, Captain America Civil War. Well, little parts of that plot were also in this comic series and that big Marvel event. And so for many years, and I don't know if they still do it, but for many years, every summer, there was like a big Marvel event. And then in it, as it said, Peter Parker had revealed who he is. I think they did that whole thing with Daredevil quite a few times, and I think for a long time they knew who he was. Well, they don't know who he is for that long, but they decided to make this run at it, where Spider-Man is trying to save his aunt, or at least trying to figure out who shot her. And then there's a Sandman issues, and I haven't read those. Maybe I should get those at some point. So Peter Parker, Spider-Man, says no more, no more. He runs out there and he flat out throws what looks like a Jeep, oh, it says Jeep on it, at the sniper. So from there, and that's all it is, then we see an ad for a toddler's kind of bed set type of a thing. Kind of cute, I guess. Got a little stool. My son has a stool here. Little nightstand for a toddler. And then we see Peter Parker swinging his wife without a costume. What's the use of wearing a costume? Everybody knows who he is, right? Swings his aunt across town. She says, so sorry. He crashes through a window. The nurses and doctors rush to the room, and there his aunt is on the hospital bed. Then he's on the side of the building. Spider Power's there, just sitting there on the side of the wall as only Spider-Man can. And this is not the Spider-Man we're used to seeing. I mean, if you looked at like early 2000 Spider-Man, 90s Spider-Man, always joking. Nope, this is a fairly broad, strong individual, strong-jawed character. The way they drew him reflects his personality through this arc. And then we see this Blue Man Group kind of a toy here. It says iPod and MP3 compatible. I kind of like an iPod. Are those things made anymore? Yeah, so, and then we see this, and interesting thing, musical object. And then we see Kingpin. So they already showed Kingpin. I mean, in the intro to this, they showed us told us that Kingpin was going to be in this issue, basically. And here he is. He has a nice, comfortable jail cell, comfortable enough. He's reading old classical literature, and I guess he's in there because there's a note, and it says, this story takes place before Daredevil 93. I don't know what happens in that issue, Daredevil 93. I don't know. So he's given a note by a guard, a prison guard. It doesn't seem like the prison guard's corrupt or anything. He seems actually kind of afraid. And Kingpin is glad he has the message. Then we go to the next page and we see an ad for kind of 3 ads. A Hulk comic, more of a Kitty Hulk comic, a Kitty Fantastic Four spinoff of the son, Franklin Richards, and then below it says new flavor Yogos, some kind of yogurt snack type of a thing. Now, what I find interesting with this is even though the tone of this comic is not so kiddie, the ads still are, and it just jumps at me so much more at my age than when I used to sit there on the trolley in San Diego from the Navy base, take the trolley all the way around, get off at the mall. There was 2 different comic stores at that mall, go figure, and then buy comics and then read them by the time I get back. But now I just see so many of these ads, they make them for kids, even if the comics themselves are not just for kids. So Mary Jane, she's standing by a theater. Also, try to remind us that she was an actress in a lifetime before. And then Peter Parker kind of steps out of the shadows. MJ, back here. She goes up to him, and he says, my fault. She's in County Memorial. She's going to need money. Mary Jane says, I have what I took when I cleaned out my account. It'll cover her for a while, but without insurance, without telling anyone who she is. And he says, you can't do that. Whoever pulled that trigger might come after her to finish the job. And if you look at my issue, there's some sun damage and stuff on this, huh? As much as people like paper comics, which I prefer, obviously, or I like, sometimes it's good to have these things digital. Okay, Peter Parker's here. He goes back, basically to the motel that he was at the apartment next door where he threw that Jeep through. His fists are clenched. He's walking up the stairs. There's a policeman there. I guess they're going to do their own investigation. Spider-Man just, no holds barred, just web slings him, web shoots the policeman onto the wall. Doesn't punch him or anything, but he just web slings him there and traps him there. Peter Parker then goes into the hotel, or the apartment complex that was next door, completely empty. So somebody must have broken into an empty unit. And then what does Peter Parker's Spidey senses tell him what's there? Is a sight for the sniper rifle that shot his aunt. And then he opens it up. He sees a little thing, says Gunter Was, I guess. Then he walks right back down. He looks angry. And if you see this drawing here, this is a different drawing of him. Very strong, sticking out chin and whatnot. Then we see an ad. We see an ad for Back in Black, the very thing we are looking at. It says February 2007, which also includes the Sandman tie-in issues, which I didn't even know existed till one day I went to Barnes & Noble's and I just saw it there. Then, next page, for the Ghost Rider movie tie-in video game. Not the Ghost Rider comic video game, the movie tie-in video game. I haven't seen the movies and I haven't played this game. Spider-Man swinging, or Peter Parker swinging through. Where's he going? He's going to a warehouse. So somehow he knew that the sniper rifle must have came from this particular warehouse. He goes in there. People look up, says, I don't knock. Crash. Goes in there. He is furious. He just beats them up. And, he's not holding much back. Then there's one guy left. And this one picture says no jokes, no punches pulled. As of tonight, no one's getting away. No one who threatens my family, no one. And then you see his fists in the air, and there's just blood everywhere. Okay, then there's one thug standing up and says, look, I don't know what you want, but... Peter Parker grabs him close. Shut up. Tell me about this. And he's showing him the sights for the rifle. Okay, and then we see Peter Parker with a look we never seen him with, right? His lips are up, and his teeth are showing, and his nose is flared up. And he says, I didn't ask if you'd seen it before. I asked if you'd tell me what you know about it. So the guy gives him a little bit of information. Then we see Mary Jane. She's at the hospital. And then the nurse says, you'd be surprised at how many gunshot wound elderly people we have here. A doctor comes. He says, is this your relative? She kind of gives the doctor kind of a fake name. Then he says she's going to die. Peter Parker then goes to this, what is this, something of old hotel or something. Then underneath the gargoyle is all webbed up, the costume, the black costume. Now, so I looked online and stuff, and I guess some people feel that really the reason for this black costume was kind of a tie-in for the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 3 movie starring Tobey Maguire. Now, if that's the case, it kind of makes sense, right? I mean, timing for that was pretty well. I'm not familiar with how much Spider-Man had worn this black costume, in a sense. I really am not too familiar with that. When I first saw this, I expected at some point we would see like the Venom symbiote powers come out of this. But no, I don't think that happens at all. It just happens to be a black costume. And I guess he would wear this when he's angry. And I don't remember seeing it too many times since. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope to do more. And I kind of need to do a little bit of this, frankly, and I kind of already said all that. So with that, I covered this issue. I hope you enjoyed. And yeah, I think in the next few of these, I will probably cover 2 issues at a time rather than just one. Just covered one this time because I made a little bit of extra commentary, which probably took up like 3 or 4 more minutes. Thank you. Bye.